Yo, what is going on, my fellow anime and manga nerds? Welcome back to Calvary's Cave, and it's time for another exciting episode of One Piece Wednesdays! Each week, we're going to be breaking down the grand adventure of One Piece into little fun, bite-sized little pieces, so you can catch up on this legendary story without having to spend hundreds of hours, and stay right on pace before the greatest mystery of all is finally revealed. Today, we're going to be diving into the Orangetown arc, and if you happen to miss my previous video regarding the Romance Dawn arc, feel free to click the link and check it out. But without further ado, why don't we just get into it? Luffy and Zoro set sail with big dreams of reaching the Grand Line, but they quickly run into a major problem. Neither of them has the slightest idea of how to navigate the open seas. Realizing that they're in a desperate need of a skilled navigator, the duo presses onward. Hunger soon strikes, and when Luffy spots a bird soaring overhead, he leaps into action to catch it for a meal. Instead, the bird snatches him up and carries him away. Zoro, left behind, rows with incredible strength and speed across the waves to catch up. Along the way, he crosses path with a few members of Buggy's crew. They prove no match for Zoro's swords, and he makes quick work of them. In the aftermath, the defeated pirates share a surprising tale. They had been tricked by a clever woman who scammed them out of their boat. She seemed quite capable and resourceful, enough so that Zoro begins to wonder if she might make the perfect navigator for their crew. The pirates also drop a hint about their captain, a notorious figure in the East Blue who has gained his fearsome reputation after eating a devil fruit. Meanwhile, the bird carrying Luffy is suddenly blasted out of the sky by one of Buggy's cannonballs. The impact sends Luffy tumbling down, landing right in front of a sharp-eyed young woman. One of the pirates, who was previously in pursuit of this mysterious woman, makes the mistake of reaching out and touching Luffy's treasured hat. In an instant, Luffy's playful demeanor vanishes. He freaks out and knocks the entire group down with ease. This brief but powerful moment shows just how much respect and emotion Luffy holds for that hat, and how fiercely he refuses to let anyone get near it. With a confident smile, the woman introduces herself as Nami, a thief who specializes in robbing pirates. A quick note for those following along, Nami is actually the first important anime character that shows up in the One Piece anime. However, in the manga, this is actually the first time that we get to see her. The anime actually chose to introduce her earlier during the Alvida ship arc and the Axe-Hand Morgan arc at the naval base. And while those scenes are actually anime-only additions, the One Piece live action also opted in to go with this storyline as well. It's clear right away that Luffy isn't interested in teaming up with Nami. After all, he's a pirate, and why would a pirate want to join forces with someone who makes a living stealing from pirates? Just before this, we learned why Buggy's crew was chasing her. Nami had swiped a valuable map of the Grand Line that Buggy planned to use for his own journey. And speaking of Buggy, he's one of the most important characters in the entire One Piece story, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. Right at the beginning of this grand adventure, we're introduced to the infamous Buggy the Clown. We already know he's eaten a devil fruit, though his exact powers remain a mystery for now. What we do see is that he's extremely sensitive about his bright red nose. True to his name, it's not a clown prop, it's his real nose. Mention it or even look like you might, and you'd better be ready for whatever punishment he decides to dish out. Back with Luffy and Nami, we get a few extra details on Buggy. He's quick to fire his cannons at the slightest irritation. Nami already knows all about his touchy nose and his devil fruit powers. We also catch a glimpse of Nami's true character. She only steals from pirates and never from the innocent or the needy. Her goal? To gather 100 million berries so she can buy back a certain village. Now, keep this scene in mind because it does tie in to her much larger backstory. She shows Luffy the Grand Line map, explaining that her dream is to sail those dangerous waters and rob even bigger pirates to reach her goal faster. She offers to team up, revealing that she's the best navigator in the East Blue. Exactly what Luffy needs. But the moment Luffy proudly declares he's a pirate, Nami's interest vanishes. After hearing about his run-in with Buggy's crew, she asks about his straw hat, thinking it might be valuable. Luffy gently explains that it's only precious to him because Shanks gave it to him. Still, Nami can't move past the pirate label. She openly declares that there's one thing in this world that she truly hates: pirates. What she does love? Money and tangerines. And I know that sounds kind of like an odd detail, but trust me, her love for tangerines runs deep into her backstory. Hold on to both of those facts. Let me get some water. Even so, Nami agrees to play along when Luffy asks her to join his crew again. She sets one condition: he has to go with her to see Buggy. Of course, this is just another one of Nami's clever schemes. She ties Luffy up and plans to hand him over to Buggy, pinning the theft of the map on him so she can try to sweet talk her way into Buggy's crew. Meanwhile, Zoro finally reaches Orange Town. He boldly asks the Buggy pirates to take him straight to their captain, setting the stage perfectly for what comes next. With his precious Grand Line map back in hand, Buggy decides it's time to celebrate with his crew and his brand new crewmate Nami. Luffy, meanwhile, sits locked in a cage. He still tries to convince Nami to join his crew, but Buggy quickly cuts the conversation short. He's already decided Luffy's fate: a one-way trip via cannonball while trapped inside the cage. To show exactly how devastating this will be, Buggy aims one of his special buggy balls at the nearby town and fires. The massive explosion levels an entire block in an instant. Turning to Nami, Buggy orders her to prove her loyalty by firing the same cannon at Luffy. She tries her usual tricks to talk her way out, but Buggy is dead set on revenge. Luffy faces the danger with his trademark grin and teases Nami, saying this is what happens when you challenge pirates without being prepared. But Nami pushes back. She's more than ready to fight pirates, but she refuses to take a life. She asks if that's what being a pirate really means. Luffy gently corrects her. Being a pirate means being ready to risk your own life. It's a quiet callback to Shanks' words from his childhood. Buggy's pirates egg Nami on to finish the execution. Instead, she pulls out her signature weapon, a trio of linked staffs, takes down one of the pirates, and seals her own fate. In the heat of the moment, Nami reveals another piece of her past. Pirates once took someone precious from her, and she will never become what she hates most. The fuse is already lit. Luffy calmly accepts what's coming until Zoro bursts in onto the scene at the last second. He cuts down the guards and stops the cannon just in time. Both Buggy and Nami instantly recognize Zoro's name. Zoro draws his sword and slices Buggy into pieces with his three-sword style, but the Buggy pirates burst out laughing because this is exactly what their captain's devil fruit does. We finally get the big reveal: the Chop Chop fruit. Buggy can detach and control any part of his body at will. Slicing him apart only plays into his hands. Buggy reassembles himself, looking triumphant as the situation turns grim, and that's when Luffy, being Luffy, boldly calls out that attacking from behind is fighting dirty, and casually insults Buggy's big red nose. As expected, Buggy loses it, but while Buggy is distracted, Zoro flips the cannon towards the crew and fires, blasting them away. With a big smile, Luffy introduces Nami to Zoro as their new navigator, though Nami strongly disagrees. In the chaos, Zoro grabs the cage with Luffy still stuck inside, and the trio makes their daring escape. Furious at how things have turned out, Buggy summons his first mate, Moji the Lion Tamer, to handle the situation. And as a quick side note, Moji and his lion Richie, they do pop up in the story later, but they're so inconsequential to the story that, it's best you just forget about them. They're there, but who cares? They're pretty inconsequential to the overall story. We cut back to Zoro and Luffy. Still bleeding from his earlier fight, Zoro collapses right in front of a scruffy little dog. Nami reveals that she actually stole the key to Luffy's cage and tosses it over, only for the dog to snatch it midair and swallow it whole. Luffy immediately gets fired up at the dog. In the middle of the chaos, the mayor of Orangetown, Boodle, steps in and gently tells them not to pick on poor old Choo Choo. In a short and surprisingly touching side story, we learn that Choo Choo has been loyally waiting at the entrance of this pet shop every day for his owner, who sadly passed away long ago. It's a small, bittersweet moment that doesn't affect the main plot, but it adds a nice bit of heart to the town. While this heartfelt scene unfolds, Moji and his lion arrive to take on the group. Choo Choo bravely stands his ground, refusing to let anyone threaten the store that he's been guarding. In the scuffle that follows, Luffy's cage gets smashed to pieces, finally setting him free. With his signature grin, Luffy proudly declares that he's about to show all of these clowns exactly who he is, and that he's definitely making that thief Nami his crew's navigator. We get an extended fight between Richie and the loyal little dog Choo Choo. Though Choo Choo is clearly outmatched, he refuses to back down, bravely defending the pet shop that he's guarded for the last few months. His courage catches Luffy's attention and perfectly embodies the spirit of never giving up, exactly what Luffy stands for. Luffy steps in, defeats the giant lion in one powerful strike and quickly takes out Moji as well. Sadly, the damage is already done. The pet shop Choo Choo has protected for so long lies in ruins. In a touching moment, Luffy finds some food for the little dog and sits down with him. Even though Choo Choo still looks angry, a quiet respect forms between them, and this small scene begins to soften Nami's heart. Meanwhile, Buggy prepares a barrage of buggy balls to finish leveling the town. Mayor Boodle, enraged by the destruction, decides to confront the clown pirate himself. As the group heads back towards Buggy's crew, another round of explosion rocks the city, waking Zoro from his rest. Nami and Luffy share a quick exchange, though she still refuses to become a pirate. She agrees to team up temporarily for their shared goal. And with that, the mayor marches on towards Buggy's crew, and Luffy's crew follows, Zoro dramatically tying on his signature bandana. And on a fun side note, whenever Zoro puts on that bandana, just know that he means serious business. Amid the chaos, we're introduced to Buggy's acrobatic second mate, Kabaji. Like Moji, he's not a major player in the long run, but he serves as Zoro's opponent while Luffy handles Buggy. And this captain versus captain or swordsman versus swordsman matchup becomes a little bit more prominent going forward into the story of One Piece as the crew grows, though it's not always so straightforward later on. Just as things look dire for Mayor Boodle, Luffy and the others arrive to save the day. In true Luffy fashion, he immediately knocks the mayor out cold, saying that he'd only get in the way. Now don't worry, it's nothing permanent, it's just classic Luffy practicality. Buggy fires another buggy ball at Luffy, giving us our first look at one of his signature techniques, the Gum Gum Balloon. Like the name suggests, Luffy inflates himself like a giant balloon, absorbs the massive cannonball, and bounces it right back at Buggy and his crew. We also get some extended back and forth action between Zoro and Kabaji. Despite taking a few hits, Zoro isn't phased. During the fight, Nami slips away to locate and steal Buggy's treasure, but before leaving, she tells Luffy that if he manages to get the Grand Line map back, she'll consider teaming up with him again. Buggy tries to interfere with Zoro's duel, but Luffy immediately stops him, establishing an early code of honor: no interrupting one-on-one fights. Zoro, tired of Kabaji's circus tricks, finishes the battle with his powerful onigiri, or demon slash technique. It kind of looks something like this. That bit took way too long. Buggy is stunned. Zoro boldly declares that they're not mere thieves, they're pirates. Luffy tells Zoro to rest up because he's got this. He proudly proclaims his dream of becoming the king of the pirates. Buggy mocks him, asking what that makes him, the god of the pirates, and warns Luffy to forget such a foolish ambition. Luffy isn't amused though. Before the fight begins, Buggy drops a surprising line. Luffy and that straw hat remind him of a certain insolent, red-haired dog from his past, hinting at a deeper, long-standing rivalry with Shanks. Luffy's eyes light up with curiosity, and he asks straight out if Buggy really knows Shanks. Buggy confirms it with a smirk. He declares that he and Shanks are mortal enemies, but he won't share the full story without a proper fight. A long, intense battle between Buggy and Luffy follows, and in the chaos, Buggy damages Luffy's straw hat, the final straw for our hero. Buggy quickly realizes that the hat is Luffy's biggest weakness and decides to exploit it, launching 3 knives straight through it. Enraged, Luffy charges forward, shouting that he promised to return the hat to Shanks in one piece. Get it? Yeah? No, never mind. Anyways, Buggy is stunned. He had suspected that the hat looked familiar, but never imagined it was actually Shanks' hat. That's when he reveals the truth. He and Shanks sailed together on the same pirate ship many years ago. Now keep this little detail in mind because it becomes incredibly important in the future. Luffy and Buggy trade more blows, and Luffy warns him, "Don't you ever mention Shanks and yourself in the same breath again." Buggy, unfazed, says that he'll talk about Shanks however he wants. He admits that no one in his life has ever made him as angry as Shanks did, because Shanks once stole a great treasure from him, something he will never forgive. And this leads into a brief but meaningful flashback. We see young Buggy and Shanks as apprentices on a pirate ship, with Shanks still wearing that same signature straw hat. Though they seem like friends, they're constantly butting heads, and a crew member breaks up one of their fights, and here is a tiny but brilliant detail. That seemingly ordinary crew member has a very mundane design in this panel, yet Oda plants him here for a reason. Hold on to that face because he becomes hugely important much later. One page after that, another seemingly minor character makes an appearance, and he will also play a massive role down the line. This level of long-term foresight is exactly why so many fans consider Eiichiro Oda one of the greatest storytellers of all time. Back to the flashback, Buggy finds a map leading to a vast fortune sunk deep on the ocean floor. That night, Shanks talks about wanting to become a captain someday, see the world, and go pirating on his own terms. Buggy says if Shanks weren't so soft, he'd ask him to join his future crew, but Shanks refuses. Their dreams are simply too different. Shanks then mentions that the crew recently found another devil fruit. He explains that whoever eats one gains amazing powers, but the seas turn against them. And it's a small wording choice that fans love to theorize about, hinting at a deeper lore behind the devil fruits. Buggy declares only a fool would eat one. With the map in hand, he figures there's treasure at the bottom of the ocean that only a swimmer could reach, so he'd never risk it. Later, however, Buggy is seen holding a devil fruit and immediately eats it. Or so it seems. In reality, he had created a fake one because he also learned that real devil fruits are worth a fortune, around 100 million berries. Buggy's plan is clever. Keep the real devil fruit to sell, use the fake to trick everyone, and go after the sunken treasure. But while he's scheming, Shanks suddenly appears and asks what he's doing. Startled, Buggy tries to hide the real devil fruit in his mouth and accidentally swallows it whole. Back in the present, Buggy is still furious. He blames Shanks for forcing him to swallow that 100 million berry devil fruit that day. Now he can't swim, so he can never reach the treasure that he found. That's why, to this day, he hates Shanks with a passion. Luffy listens quietly and then simply replies, "Shanks saved my life." And the fight resumes. In the midst of the chaos, Nami gets caught stealing Buggy's treasure. Enraged, Buggy launches himself after her at full speed, only for Luffy to notice something hilarious. Buggy left his legs behind, and in classic Luffy fashion, he delivers a powerful kick straight to the family jewels, stopping the clown pirate dead in his tracks. This moment reveals Buggy's true weakness. While blades can't truly harm him thanks to his chop chop fruit, blunt force works wonders. Perfect for Luffy's rubber-powered fighting style. Nami declares that she has no room to argue with pirates and claims that the treasure is hers. Even though these early battles have a goofy edge, they highlight Luffy's impressive battle IQ. He instantly figures out Buggy's vulnerability and exploits it without hesitation. During the scuffle, Luffy secures the Grand Line map, but the fight isn't over yet. Buggy tries to reassemble himself, only to realize that Nami had grabbed most of his body parts and tied them up tight. With only a few pieces left, he's vulnerable. Luffy seizes the moment and launches him sky high, bringing the battle to a decisive end. Luffy grins triumphantly and turns to Nami. "You'll join my crew now, right?" She reluctantly agrees for the time being. Hugging the stolen treasure, she notes that it's worth at least 10 million berries. Luffy, however, couldn't care less about the gold. He carefully places his damaged straw hat back on his head, relieved that he can still wear it. The townspeople soon arrive and demand answers. When they spot Mayor Boodle unconscious on the ground, Nami tries to smooth things over, but carefree Luffy proudly admits that he knocked the mayor out because he'd just get in the way. The villagers immediately chase the group out of Orangetown, and in a heartwarming, full-circle moment, Little Choo Choo blocks the angry mob, giving Luffy, Nami, and Zoro time to reach their boat safely. Mayor Boodle finally wakes up and rushes to the harbor. "Thank you," he calls out. "I won't forget this." The trio smiles back and waves, telling him to take it easy. Later, Luffy casually reveals that he left Nami's stolen treasure behind in the village to help them rebuild, and in true Nami fashion, she furiously beats him up and threatens his life, while Zoro laughs in the background. The narrator wraps things up. Nami the thief has joined the crew, and the two ships set sail together, but little do they know, they'll soon face the Trial of the Forest. Now, what is the Trial of the Forest? That is a great question because we're getting a bonus episode for One Piece Wednesday, the Gaiman Arc! So the Gaiman Arc is a little bit of a mini chapter. It doesn't really pertain to the grand story of One Piece, or at least so we think. There are theories around if this little story is important, so I figured since this little mini arc is only one chapter long, I'd get to tell it to you guys just so you can get a little bit of extra lore. In the next chapter, we see Nami's talent as a seamstress when she quickly fixes Luffy's damage damaged straw hat. Shortly after, the crew arrives at a small, mysterious island teeming with exotic creatures and strange sights. Amid the chaos, Luffy is suddenly shot. The group turns to find the source of the gunshot and spots a suspicious treasure chest with a big afro poking out of the top. And this is our introduction to Gaimon, the quirky, self-proclaimed keeper of the island. While Gaimon's role in the story of One Piece remains a little bit unclear, given that he really doesn't appear again at all after this, the meeting is still packed with fun character moments and some big world-building drops. During their conversation, Luffy proudly declares that he's going after the One Piece and plans to enter the Grand Line, and Nami steps in and drops some key lore about the world. She explains that the planet has two vast oceans, separated by a single massive strip of land called the Red Line, and at the center of this red line sits a town with a sea route that cuts straight through it and circles the entire globe. That route is the Grand Line. Gold Roger, the king of the pirates, was the only person who ever fully conquered it. Everyone says it's the most dangerous sea route in the entire world. If the One Piece truly lies somewhere along that path, then all they have to do is sail around the world to claim it. Gaimon warns them that the Grand Line is known as the Pirate's Graveyard, a place of pure horror where finding the One Piece and making it back alive is almost impossible. He then shares his own backstory. 20 years ago, he was a pirate who came to this island chasing rumors of treasure, and while searching, he fell into a treasure chest and got stuck. And by the time he woke up, his crew had already sailed away without him. And for the past 2 decades, he's been living on the island, scaring off other treasure hunting pirates with this Trial of the Forest act. It didn't work so well on Luffy and the crew though. Luffy, being Luffy, decides to help. He climbs the cliff where the treasure was supposedly hidden, only to discover that all of the chests are empty. Gaimon sighs, saying that's how treasure maps usually go. Someone else already beat you to the loot. Luffy reassures him with a smile, telling him not to feel bad. If they hadn't shown up, Gaimon might have stayed stuck there for another 30 years and missed his whole life. And in classic Luffy fashion, Luffy invites Gaimon to join the crew, but Gaimon politely declines. Over the past 20 years, he's grown to love the little creatures of the jungle and doesn't want to abandon them. As the Straw Hats prepare to leave, Gaimon sees them off with warm words. Go find the One Piece and make the world your oyster. And with that heartwarming little detour complete, the crew resumes their voyage towards the Grand Line. And that brings us to the end of the Orange Town arc and the Gaimon arc. Now it's time to give you guys some questions to keep in the back of your mind, just so you know what's going to be important later to the future of One Piece. Question number 1, what does Shanks mean by the sea turns against people who eat devil fruits? Question number 2, who are these two mysterious characters who get introduced in Buggy and Shanks' backstory? Question number 3, where did Buggy go when Luffy shot him up into the air? But yeah, I think that's everything that I got for you guys in this video. If you do have any questions for me as to the lore of One Piece up in the story so far, feel free to let me know in the comments. But don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. You still here?